Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about racism and different perspectives, very important from sociological point of view. But before we begin the session, I want you to pause for a moment and think about it. Have you ever or has someone in your presence casually referred to a person with dark complexion as Negro or Kala or Kalwa, something like that? Or, called someone from northeastern states like Chinese, chowmein or momo? You probably remember such moments, right? And many people laugh when you see such kind of words, or you use such kind of words, or hear such kind of words without realizing that these are racial slurs and not mere jokes, right? What appears to be casual to one person, or when he might be taking it as casual, but that can leave another with lifelong trauma, stigma, and psychological scars. And this is precisely where the problem of racism begins. And that's actually the context of this discussion. Now, when you come to the racial discrimination in India, particularly against people from the northeastern states, others also I'll discuss that that's a deeper sociological crisis. And that's the reason why I've taken this as a sociological topic. Okay. Again, it's not merely a problem of language, or it's not a problem of a joke or something, right? It's not an isolated behavior also. It's a crisis of social exclusion. So this is signifying that social exclusion, dehumanization, and conditional acceptance of citizenship. And at its core, the issue is about belongingness. Who's considered fully Indian and who's treated as outsider, who's living within the nation. Now, all these are bigger questions. I'll also discuss this case of Angel Chakma. This is when the racism have turned fatal, right? So this is a tragic case of Angel Chakma, a student from Tripura studying in UK, Uttarakhand, and was brutally exposes the trajectory of racism in India in this case. See, Angel, in fact, objected to racial slurs directed him and his brother. So there are some such incidents, and the response was not remorse. The response was violence, and he was attacked with knife and dead after days of struggle. Just months before his completion of graduation and getting employment. And again, if you look at this incident, it's not isolated, it's not rare, it's merely visible, right? So there are many such incidents you see which goes unreported and just get normalized and silenced otherwise. Violence is often the final stage of long process that begins with everyday humiliation. So you see such kind of jokes every day. Some people take it as jokes. Some people, those who get exposed to this, they will face it as dehumanization, humiliation, and then see, if you object it, then again that is going to create problems as well. Now let's understand this deeply. For that, we must move beyond the individual actions and we need to examine the structural and ethical failures. What are the key causes included? Firstly, normalization of prejudice disguised as humor. Is it humor? No, right? Racism is often excused as just joking, right? You know, this calling black and then black gold, this pepper, right? Which is black gold, and you call like that, right? Again, the another reason could be mainland centric idea of Indian appearance. So that's a narrow visual imagination of who looks Indian, right? Again, that is there. Now you looks like Chinese, you look like that, you look like this, you don't look like an Indian. So that question is also there. And then lack of exposure to the internal diversity. You see, India's diversity is celebrated like anything, but it is understood poorly socially, but it is celebrated like anything. And another issue is that the weak social accountability of everyday racism, right? The casual racism that rarely faces any consequences. It is taken as joke and it is accepted also. And then the bystander apathy. Mostly the silence convert prejudice into that legitimacy. Okay, let's also look at the ethical perspective is involved in this. Like it's a moral failure at any point of time. If you take it, it's a moral failure. From an ethical point of view, if you take, see, mockery based on appearance, that violates human dignity. And if you look at it, equality before law collapses when society practices hierarchy, right? The inability to feel another's humiliation is a moral failure. So these are again ethical concerns which are involved when it comes to racism. And in that case, which I have told you, Angel's protest that reflected that personal integrity. He was not ready to take it. That is personal integrity, that's the dignity. And society's silence basically reflected the ethical erosion. And when humiliation becomes normalized, it gets institutionalized, what will happen is ethics collapses quietly, right? People forget the ethics part and people just accept these as mere jokes. Okay, let's come to the sociological perspective, which is more important. So, of course, which one you use here if you get a question? Labeling theory. Racial slurs function as labels, right? Mark Northeast Indians as outsiders. That's what they do. And impose identities they did not choose and fix social meanings onto physical appearances. So, these labels that create social distance and justify exclusion. And again, stigma. You can use the perspective of Irving Goffman. I've discussed it a number of times in the sociology classes. The physical features become makers of a discredited identity. And once, if you get stigmatized, that individual is seen through stereotypes and normal social interaction become impossible. Identity is reduced to appearance, your appearance only. So you looks like if you belong to northeastern part of India, then there is a identity question, right? So whether you are a Chinese, you look like Chinese. And that's what I mean by identity reduced to your appearance. The way you look like, that's the way you are connected with your identity also. Even the citizenship is also getting questioned. Pierre Bourdieu, you can write symbolic violence, right? So the casual racial slurs are form of symbolic violence. You're not actively, hitting or killing or doing any violence, but it's a, you can say latent, in fact, symbolic violence. And these are appear to be normal and do not look violent, but function as silent domination. And this violence is very powerful precisely because it is misrecognized as harmless. And mostly you accepted these are jokes as. So that's why this is even more powerful. So those who see this and those who do this, they feel it is okay. But those who get this, those who are at the receiving end, they are subjected to, that kind of trauma, right? And then Andre Bette, intersectionality, you can use race, ethnicity, culture, region. These are going to intersect and they produce the layered discrimination. So Northeastern student may face racialization and then the regional stereotyping and then the cultural marginalization all at once. That's what I mean by layered discrimination. Edward said, or, othering. So here, Northeast Indians are often racialized as foreigners within their own nation. So this is classic othering. So constructing an us versus them, that idea, and denying the full belongingness, right? So this is one form. That's what you mean by othering. And questioning nationality through your appearance. So your identity is just reduced to your appearance. I've discussed that before also. And again, this conditional belonging, the question of citizenship, which is also there, right? So that is again the form of racism that reveals the very disturbing reality, question about citizenship. In practice it becomes conditional, right? And it's not become constitutional. Your citizenship, which is given constitutionally, but it becomes conditional, and people are asked to prove their nationality, justify their belonging, endure humiliation to be accepted. And when a citizen must die proclaiming his nationality, right, it is not identity that stands exposed, it's a society which stands actually exposed. So what need to be done now? That's the question. Now interventions are required. The solution cannot be symbolic, it has to be structural. So many areas need to be taken care. So many, even see mindset change that is going to take a lot of time. So that's a bigger problem. So clear recognition of racial hate crimes, that should be there clearly. School level sensitization of internal diversity. You have to understand diversity. You celebrate diversity, but you don't understand it actually. And media representation, the responsible media representation. That's what we need, right? And urban inclusion programs for the migrants and, active bystander culture. So silence is no longer neutral. You have to be active, right? So, guys, again, social change begins when everyday racism becomes socially unacceptable. So that's when the social change actually happened. Now it is taken as jokes. It is taken as something which is expected and accepted also. So See, racism in India is not an imported problem. It is internally produced through ignorance, through hierarchy, and silence. Silence is again very important. So, this is not just a legal issue, it's an ethical issue. I've covered that dimension, right? The moral decay is what it is showing, and it's a sociological issue, and ultimately, it is a citizenship issue. So, remember, when discrimination is normalized, violence becomes possible. That's the end of it. And when silence prevails, what will happen? Injustice becomes systematic and systemic. So, see, what role do we play? We need to be active or passive. We need to play actively or passively in sustaining or resisting the crisis. If you want to sustain this, you make it passive. If you want to resist it, you need to make it active, right? So you cannot be silent. So this is what I want to discuss, and I have covered the ethical dimension, the sociological dimension also. I hope you got some value from the session. I see you in the next video.